Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ben here, and today I'm going to be doing the second video in a 5-part series that I started about a week ago, and that was on the top 10 current NBA players at each position. So I started in the first video at centers, and this video will be focused on power forwards, and the next will be on small forwards and etc. until I've done all 5 positions. But for today, we're going to be looking at power forwards, and I think that this is an interesting one to do because the power forward position has probably gone through the most change of any position in the NBA over the past decade. You've really seen a change from a traditional power forward, which is what I would say is basically your Tim Duncan, Pau Gasol types, or let's see, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, Pau Gasol. Those are sort of your prototypical, but I'm going to stick with Tim Duncan as my best example. A guy who really could play center if he had to, 6'10" or taller, really good with the back to the basket, really good on defense and interior offense. No real three-point shot or anything. But now you take that and you compare it to today's power forwards, which is a lot more of what's called the stretch 4 or stretch power forward, which are players that are focused mainly on shooting three-pointers and spreading the floor so that defenders have to come out to the three-point line who normally would be in the paint, and that creates lanes for other players like point guards to drive into the lane and create at the basket. So that's a really interesting transition that has been going on, and I think it's evident in this list in that a lot of the players on the list are guys that can stretch the floor, and a main asset that makes them useful in today's NBA is their ability to shoot the three ball. So I'm going to start off at number 10 and work my way down to 1, and here we go. Alright, so starting off at number 10, I have a guy who really improved a lot last year. He did a great job just really working on his game, and that would be Julius Randle. So I'm going to start off going through his stats and then talk a little bit just about his game in general. So this past year, he averaged 16 points a game, 8 rebounds a game, 3 assists, half a steal, and half a block. And the 16 points I think is the most impressive because he really kept upping that. The year before he averaged 13, and so up to 16 was impressive. He set a career high for field goal percentage by far. His previous career high was 49%, and this year he shot 56%. I really see Julius Randle as basically the next incarnation of Zach Randolph, a guy who really does well on the block, and he's not going to be the best player on a championship team, but he could be the 3rd best player on a serious title contender, I'd say. Probably will never put up 25 a game, but maybe his peak would be around 18 to 20 a game. Along with that, can shoot the 3 ball a little bit. This last year, he shot 22%, which isn't great, but, occasionally you have to watch him at the 3-point line. Not that often, but occasionally. I really like him a lot. I think that it's promising that he'll end up that he is going to be playing for New Orleans next year. I'm really interested to see how he plays off of Anthony Davis and what he's asked to do exactly, because I feel like he can't fill all of DeMarcus Cousins' responsibilities, but I think that he can do a pretty good job of, doing the same sort of things and being an adequate replacement for DeMarcus Cousins. Alright, so moving on to number 9 is a guy who I also like a lot, and that would be Paul Millsap. So Paul Millsap played for Denver last year. He played a little less than half of the season because he had a big injury, I think, to the lower body, if I'm correct. He played 38 games, averaged 30 minutes a game. He had 15 points a night along with 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal and a block to go along with that. So his numbers are a little bit down, and I think that's mainly because Denver had a lot more scoring options than Atlanta did, and he was more like the 3rd option, I'd say, or maybe even the 4th on Denver behind, for sure, Jokic and Gary Harris, and then sometimes Will Barton or Jamal Murray would take the 3rd slot, and so he would even be sometimes down to 4. But ideally on this team, he's the second or third option. Hyper talented. He's a guy that, maybe he only averages 14 points a game or 15 or 16 if he's getting the ball a bit more. But he's really going to help your team out and improve them a lot and do a lot of things that don't necessarily show up on the stat sheet. He's a professional. He has a good basketball IQ. He's able to just help enhance the entire team, and he just does his job to a T every time. But don't go looking for him to score 30 a night if you need that, because he's more of a guy that caps around 20 if you really need him to score a lot. But I'm really looking forward to seeing how he does this year on Denver, now that he won't be as injured. He will be a year older. I think he'll be 34, but I still expect good things from him. Probably not an all-star season, but I'm expecting about 16 points, 7 rebounds, probably to be their second option on offense. Maybe their third, depending on how Gary Harris develops. So that's a bit about Paul Millsap. Coming in at number 8, I have a guy who has a lot of athleticism, but just needs the opportunity to fill out his game a bit more, and that would be Aaron Gordon. So as last year, he set a lot of personal highs in a lot of categories. He played 33 minutes a night. He scored 18 points a game, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 block, and 1 steal a game. He shot 43% from the field, which is actually his career low, but he did shoot 34% from the three-point line, which is a great improvement, and he's never shot anywhere close to that previously. So that's a good sign for things to come, and he's really starting to round out his game, I would say, and that he's becoming an actual three-point threat. And they played him more at power forward than the year before. In 2016 to 17, they tried to play him exclusively at small forward, and it didn't really work, but they let him play power forward this year, which I think was a good decision because he's much more of a power forward with the 6'10", 6'9" body and the hyper athleticism. I think that's more beneficial for him to be at power forward, especially because he's beginning to stretch it. That means that defenses have to put their 4 out there to guard him more. So a guy who I really like a lot, I think he's a bit trapped in Orlando. He did just sign a 4-year contract with them, which I wouldn't have done if I were him. But maybe he's looking to be a guy who really is the #1 player on a team, and that's what being with Orlando will give him. So the next guy I got on here is sort of in a similar vein to Aaron Gordon, in my opinion. And at number 7, that would be Kristaps Porzingis. And what I mean by that is that he plays for a poor team in the Knicks, and he's good, but I think he has a lot of room for improvement and a lot of room to improve certain areas of his game. This last year, he played 32 minutes a night. He shot 44% from the field and 39% from three-point land. He had 23 points a night, 7 rebounds, 2 blocks a game, 1 steal a game, 1 assist a game. And for Porzingis, I think the thing that he really needs to improve the most is the rebounding. He had around 7, but he's 7'3". He needs to be getting at least 10 rebounds a night. It might be a result of him playing a lot more on the perimeter. As I said, the 39% from three-point land is really good, but I think that is an omen that he obviously spends a lot of time on the perimeter. The 7'3", I think that could be beneficial for a post game if he builds up a little bit more muscle. He's very skinny, but if he put on some muscle, I think he could play in the post a bit more and be more of a factor down there. The 2 blocks a game is very good, but he just needs to continue working on his game. He is projected to miss almost all of this next season, if not all of it, but that doesn't mean that he can't be improving certain facets of his game while he recovers from all that. And I think the season after this, which would be 2019 to 20, I would hope to see him come back averaging 26 and 12. But it may not happen, but I just hope he keeps improving his game because he has a lot of potential in this league. Number 6 is I have at number 6 Draymond Green. A lot of people might think that this is a bit low for him, especially when you're just talking about power forwards. Some people might argue he's a top 10 NBA player. I do not agree with that, but I have him as number 6 on my list of power forwards. Now, yes, Draymond is a very good player, and yes, he's a 3-time champ and a Defensive Player of the Year, and he's been in the All-Star game a few times, 3 to be exact. But I don't think that he would be an effective All-Star caliber player if he was not in Golden State. I think that system is perfect for him. And let's say you put him on Atlanta. Do they drastically improve? Do they go from a 20-win team to a 30-win team? I really don't think so. I think he still puts up the same stats, and they're the same relative type of team. He played 33 minutes a night last year. He shot 45% from the field, 30% from 3. He averaged 11 points a game with 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block a game. He is the pseudo point forward of the Warriors, and that works really well for them because Steph and KD and Klay Thompson can all play off the ball. So having a power forward bring the ball up really can stretch the floor too. He has a little bit of a three-point shot, which helps the team, but they have enough spacing that they don't really need that from him. They really need the fighter and the dog mentality that he brings to the table. And I think that is key, but I think that his role on Golden State is made to seem more important than it is because of the team he plays on. If he was doing the same thing he was doing on Dallas, or as I said, Atlanta, or a team like New Jersey, no one would be paying attention to him. But because he's with the best team in the league, people watch him more and they see the good things he does, and so he gets a lot more attention. That's why I have him all the way down at number 6. If you disagree with me, feel free to plead your case in the comments. The next guy I got on here is LaMarcus Aldridge at number 5. He had a great off-season, or not off-season, I should say. He had a great season last year, a bit of a bounce back. He played 34 minutes a night. He had 9 rebounds a game, 2 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, and 23 points a night. This is up from 17 the year previous to that. Very impressive, but it was not much of a surprise because he was the number 1 option on the Spurs with Kawhi gone. He did a good job of leading the team with not much surrounding him besides a Rudy Gay coming off of an ACL tear and a 38-year-old Pau Gasol, 38-year-old Tony Parker, and 40-year-old Manu Ginobili. They have some nice pieces, but I still think that what he did was very impressive. They got to the playoffs. It was very, they didn't stand much of a chance against Golden State, but Aldridge played well. Better than he did the year before against Golden State in the playoffs. This year he averaged about 24 points a game in the playoffs. He has a bit of a three-point shot. It was worse this last year, but it was 29%. The year before was 41%, but it's, I think, one of those things where the more shots you take, the lower your percentage gets. He shot 51% from the field, which is impressive, I think. Excuse me. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see what he brings to the table next year. I'm guessing it'll be around 22 points a game and 8 or 9 rebounds, which is what he's done for about the last 8 years, honestly. So yeah, LaMarcus Aldridge at 5. Number 4 is a guy who gets a lot of flack in this league, but I think is still a decent player, and that would be Kevin Love. This last year, he was voted an All-Star, and he put up 18 points a game, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 0.4 blocks a game. He shot 46% from the field, 42% from 3, 88% from the line. And I think he's a guy who can be the 3rd best option on a championship team, and we saw that in Cleveland. He's very inconsistent is his main problem, I think. The playoffs was a great example of that. He averaged around 11 points in the first round, which is very bad. He bounced back in the second round, and from there on he was okay. But he actually had a really good finals, which is interesting because he's never really had a good finals against Golden State. But he was averaging 20-plus points a game and like 11 rebounds a game, which is really good. I think that this guy is really good when he's healthy. He is injured a lot, which is unfortunate, but as a number 1 option, as we've seen in Minnesota, he can put up 25 a game. But as a 2nd or 3rd option, he can put up around 18 and 10, which is really good for a 3rd option, honestly. Now, moving on, I think that this will be the most controversial of all my picks on here. and my ordering, but my number 3 power forward in the NBA right now is Blake Griffin of the Detroit Pistons. Now, don't stop watching the video just because you disagree with this. Just hear me out. This last year, he averaged 21 points a game, 7 rebounds a game, 6 assists a game, around a half steal and a half block a game. He shot around 44% from the field and 34% from three-point land. And I think that the thing with Blake Griffin is he's one of these guys, when he's healthy, he is right here as one of the best in the league. But when he's unhealthy, which is frequent, people think worse of him, and so they drop him down the ranks. But his main problem is he's just always been hurt. 2015 to 16, he missed around 50 games. This year, he missed around 25 games. The year before, he missed 20 games. 14 to 15, which was arguably his MVP season, he missed 15 games. But so the last 4 seasons, he just hasn't been healthy very often. But I still think that he's like a guy that could be the number 2 option on a championship team. I think that those Clippers with him and DeAndre and Chris Paul, when they were all healthy, they honestly should have made the finals once or twice and just don't have the clutch gene or something. I never know what the problem was, but I'm a guy that supports Blake, and the year that he almost won MVP, I thought he definitely deserved it. The thing that Blake Griffin has that people don't think about is the three-point shot and his ability to assist others. He averaged 6 assists a game this last year. That's really high for him compared to what I think most people assume, which would be about around 3 a game. And also the 34% from 3, I think, is impressive for what people assume with him. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Blake Griffin, and if you disagree, let me know again. Number 2 is a guy who I didn't really know to place at which position to place him, but number 2 is Ben Simmons. I'm putting him at power forward because I feel like when he doesn't play point guard, his primary position is power forward. You could say he's small forward too, but I think because of his lack of shooting, I'd put him at power forward. This last year in his rookie year, he played 34 minutes a night. He shot 55% from the field. He had 16 points a game, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, 1 block a game, 2 steals a game. There's a lot of promise in this young guy. The main thing is if he can develop a three-point shot, he will be the best player in the NBA in 5 years. The 16 points a night is a little low for, I think, what I am expecting from him in the future. I'm expecting more around 20 to 22 a night. The 8 rebounds and 8 assists is great. This could be the first guy that averages a triple-double for his career, I honestly think. The 2 steals a game is good. The 1 block a game is good. He is very tall, so I feel like 1 block might be a little low for a guy that a lot of times guards point guards, but we'll see. We'll just wait and see where he settles into. Like if Markelle Fultz becomes a really good player, then he'll be at the point guard, and then Ben will be full-time at the power forward. But we'll just have to see how that develops. Yeah, I just think the only thing that you can fault him with is the free throw shooting and the three-point shooting. But if he improves that and gets a jump shot going, he'll be the best player in the league. Alright, and moving on to number 1, I don't think there is much suspense here. I think it's pretty obvious. The best power forward that the best current power forward in the NBA is Anthony Davis. Let's read off his stats from this last year. He averaged 28 points a game. He shot 53% from the field, 34% from 3, which is a career high, 83% from the free throw line, which is good, 11 rebounds a game, 2 assists a game, 2 steals a game, 3 blocks a game. He led the league in blocks, which is impressive. This guy is probably about, let's see here. I don't know. I think that he's a top 6. I think I had him at number 6 on my list of best players in the league. I think he's highly impressive, multiple facets. Good defender, good rebounder, good scorer. He can stretch the floor. He really does everything you'd want in a power forward. He's really like if you take Tim Duncan or take Kevin Garnett and add a three-point shot, you've got Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis. I'd say he's basically Garnett with a jump shot. And Man, he's just so hard to define because now I want to say he's more Tim Duncan, but I think that he's got more of Garnett's athletic ability, but he's got Duncan's. He's just so simple. He's like if Duncan and Garnett had a baby, and you threw in a 3-point shot, then you've got Anthony Davis. So that's pretty high praise. That's what I think of him, and that's my list, guys. That's the top 10 current power forwards in the NBA. Let me know what you think in the comments. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time. Bye.